Hey there. Welcome to the channel You Wouldn't Survive. Here, we dive into the harshest moments in history, not to glorify them, but to show you what survival really looked like for ordinary people. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, tap that like button, and in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. We read every single comment, and your support helps us keep these stories alive. And now, let's begin. You think survival is simple. You think strength is enough. But survival has never been about strength. It has always been about circumstances, about chaos, about choices that were never really choices. And nowhere was this more true than in Iraq in the year 2003. Maybe you remember the headlines. Maybe you don't. But those who lived it will never forget. The world watched it on television as if it were a movie. The night sky above Baghdad lit up with fire, bombs dropping in waves, buildings crumbling into dust. News anchors called it shock and awe. For people on the ground, it wasn't a spectacle. It was the end of their world. Imagine this. It is March. The air is warm, but the city feels colder than ever. You are lying awake at night, the walls of your home trembling with every distant explosion. The sound rolls through your chest, shaking your bones, rattling the glass in your windows. Your family huddles together in the dark, whispering prayers, clutching each other's hands. You try to close your eyes, but every flash outside paints the room with ghostly light. The government told you to stay calm. Foreign broadcasts told you to flee. Neighbors argue. Some pack bags, some stay put. Where would you even go? The highways are clogged. Roads are broken. Bridges bombed. The airport is gone. There is no safe way out, so you stay, because there is nothing else to do. Day after day, the bombing continues. The city that once buzzed with cars, markets, and school children now lies empty. Streets are littered with rubble. Black smoke rises from oil fires. The once familiar skyline of Baghdad turns into ragged ruins. You hear fighter jets scream overhead, and every time you wonder, is this one coming for me? Electricity fails. At first it flickers, hours of blackout, then a few minutes of light. Then it vanishes completely. The refrigerator goes silent. Food begins to spoil. You light candles, but wax runs out fast. You sit in the dark, the air heavy with fear. Water becomes scarce. The taps cough out brown liquid, then nothing. You walk with plastic jugs to a neighbor's house, to a mosque, to a well. Anywhere someone whispers there is still water. Sometimes you wait hours in line. Sometimes, when you finally reach the front, there is nothing left. And through it all, the sirens never stop. Sometimes they wail as bombs fall. Sometimes they scream when there is no danger because the system is broken. Either way, you freeze. Your heart jumps. Every sound outside could mean death. You try to comfort your children, but your voice shakes. You begin to understand that survival here is not about bravery. It is not about toughness. It is about luck. Which building collapses? Which street is struck? Which car is searched? Which door soldiers decide to kick in? Every day feels like a coin toss. Every night feels like borrowed time. Ordinary life disappears almost overnight. Schools close, hospitals overflow, pharmacies run out of medicine. A fever that once meant a trip to the clinic now feels like a death sentence. Cuts, infections, childbirth, things that should be manageable suddenly become battles for survival. And still, the bombs fall. You lose track of days. Was that explosion last night or the night before? Was it 2 days ago you last ate a proper meal? Did you even sleep? The calendar in your mind fades. There is only before the war and after it began. Neighbors disappear. Some flee to the countryside. Some are buried under rubble. Some are taken away, and you never see them again. The sound of their voices fades, replaced by silence in the stairwell, empty chairs in the courtyard, locked doors on your street. You tell yourself not to think about it, not to ask questions. Questions only bring fear, and fear brings despair. But deep down, you know, your world is shrinking. You used to plan your future, a better job, a marriage, education for your children. Now the future is one thing only. Will I live to see tomorrow? And that is only the beginning. This is Iraq, 2003, and by the end of this story, you will understand why survival here was something you would not endure. The bombs fall less often now, but the silence that follows is not peace. It is something heavier, something more dangerous, because after the fire comes the emptiness. When the first tanks roll into Baghdad, people peek through broken windows, hearts pounding. Some wave white cloths, hoping it means safety. Others stay hidden, praying they will be ignored. Soldiers march down streets that used to be crowded with markets and children. Boots echo on cracked pavement. The sound does not feel like liberation. It feels like a warning. Shops are shuttered. The ones that open are stripped bare within hours. Looters rush through markets, grabbing anything: food, medicine, electronics. Some steal out of greed. Most steal out of desperation. You join the crowd not because you want to, but because your children are hungry. You push past strangers, grab what little is left on the shelves: rice, canned beans, maybe powdered milk. You clutch it tight, as if someone might tear it away. The streets are filled with smoke, dust, shouting. Fires burn in government buildings. The smell of charred paper and melted plastic mixes with the heat. Once grand statues are pulled down, cheered by some, mourned by others. For you, there is no triumph in it, only fear. Because power has collapsed, and when power collapses, so does order. Nights become the worst. With electricity gone, the city is swallowed in darkness. No street lights, no hum of refrigerators, no glow from windows, only blackness. You light candles when you can find them, but their flames make you a target. In the dark, you hear gunshots, shouts, the crash of glass. Neighbors whisper that gangs roam the streets now, armed and desperate. You bar your door with furniture, press your children close, and pray the footsteps you hear outside will keep moving. Hospitals, once crowded, are now overwhelmed. Doctors work with no supplies, no electricity, no rest. You hear of surgeries done by flashlight, of wounds cleaned with boiled water, of mothers screaming as they give birth on dirty floors. Outside, ambulances cannot move, no fuel, no safety. Families carry their wounded in wheelbarrows, in their arms, on foot, hoping someone inside will help. Sometimes they are turned away. There is simply nothing left to give. Schools are silent. Classrooms gather dust. Children sit at home, restless, frightened. Parents try to teach them, but what lesson can you give when the only subject is survival? The laughter of children fades from the streets, replaced by the distant thud of artillery, the constant growl of generators, the cries of mothers. Water becomes more precious than gold. You hear of people walking miles under the hot sun, carrying buckets from one side of the city to the other. Some neighborhoods share wells, guarded by men with rifles. Others depend on trucks that come sporadically, selling water at prices no one can afford. You ration every drop for drinking, for cooking, for washing. Sometimes you do not wash for weeks. Sometimes you drink water that smells of rust and dirt because thirst is stronger than fear. And all the while, foreign voices echo on the radio. Promises of democracy, promises of rebuilding. But on the ground, promises do not feed your children. Promises do not keep you safe when armed men knock on your door at night. Promises do not stop the shaking in your hands when you hear gunfire a few streets away. You start to learn the rules of this new world. Rule 1, never go out after dark. Rule 2, never trust a stranger. Rule 3, never keep too much food in one place. If people know you have it, they will come. Your neighborhood forms watch groups. Men who once worked in offices or drove taxis now carry sticks, knives, sometimes old rifles. They patrol at night, whispering to each other, eyes darting at every shadow. You take your turn, because if you refuse, your family will be left unprotected. Every sound makes your heart jump. Every night feels endless. You remember when Baghdad was alive, when streets overflowed with sellers shouting prices, children chasing each other between stalls, women bargaining for spices. Now the market is chaos. Stalls stand half empty, prices soar by the day. Bread that once cost pennies now costs a small fortune. A bag of rice feels like treasure. And yet, you see resilience too. Families share what little they have with neighbors. A mother splits bread between 5 children, though it barely feeds 2. An old man plays an oud in the courtyard, his trembling voice singing old songs, trying to remind people of better days. For a few minutes, the music drowns out the war. For a few minutes, you almost believe life can go on. But then the sky cracks again. A boom in the distance, dust rising, children screaming. And you remember, this is not life, this is survival. And survival here is not about strength. It is about learning to live without everything you once thought was necessary: electricity, safety, medicine, even hope. This is Iraq in 2003, and for most of the world, it was a headline. For the people here, it was their every breath. The first weeks were fire raining from the sky. Now the fire is on the ground, in the streets, in the houses, in the neighborhoods where people still try to live. Baghdad is tense. Fallujah is burning. Basra is torn apart. And you, an ordinary person, are caught between armies. You wake to the sound of gunfire, not bombs. Short, sharp cracks echo through narrow alleys. Sometimes they are close, sometimes distant, but always enough to freeze your blood. You press yourself against the wall, listening. Every bullet could mean soldiers moving, or fighters hiding, or someone unlucky caught in between. The city is now carved into zones, one street under foreign control, the next under local fighters, the one after that, no one knows. You learn to memorize invisible borders, to never cross the wrong corner, to never walk down the wrong alley, because if you do, you may not return. Checkpoints appear everywhere. Concrete blocks, barbed wire, soldiers shouting in languages you do not understand. They search cars, they search bags, they search eyes. You keep your head down, your answers short, your hands visible. You pray your accent does not betray you. You pray they do not mistake you for someone else. At night, resistance fighters move silently. Young men with scarves covering their faces, rifles in their hands, whispers on their lips. They are neighbors, cousins, shopkeepers, but now they are soldiers. They fight in the shadows, blending into the city. And when they strike, retaliation is swift. Whole blocks are sealed, houses raided, families dragged into the street. You do not know if you should fear the soldiers more or the fighters who draw them here. Fallujah becomes a word of terror. Entire neighborhoods flattened, mosques riddled with bullets, civilians trapped inside their homes, unable to flee. Some wave white cloths, begging for safe passage, but there is no safe passage. The city is sealed. The battles rage for days. Families huddle in basements, without food, without water, without light, waiting for the shelling to stop. Some never come out. And yet, even outside Fallujah, no one feels safe. You hear rumors of kidnappings, of people disappearing on the road between cities. Armed men stop buses, pull passengers out, demand to know who they are, where they are from, which side they belong to. Wrong answers mean you vanish. Sometimes there are no right answers. The soundscape of your life is no longer music, no longer laughter, no longer the hum of the city. It is gunfire, helicopters, shouting, doors breaking. You learn to tell the difference between weapons by sound, an AK, a machine gun, a mortar. Each has its own voice. Each voice means danger. And then there are the raids. Boots pounding up stairwells, doors splintering, flashlights sweeping through rooms, soldiers shouting, rifles raised. You are pushed against a wall, hands behind your head, your children crying at your feet. They search your home, tearing through drawers, scattering clothes, smashing furniture. Maybe they find nothing. Maybe they still take someone, a brother, a cousin. You never know if you will see them again. Trust dissolves. Neighbors whisper, afraid to speak too loudly. Some collaborate, some resist, some just try to survive. You no longer know who is who. You no longer know who might betray you. The walls feel thinner. Every word feels dangerous. Silence becomes your safest weapon. And in the middle of it all, ordinary life still struggles to exist. Women bake bread in outdoor ovens when flour is available. Children kick deflated balls in alleys when the shooting pauses. Old men gather in courtyards to drink tea, their hands trembling, their voices low. But everything feels fragile. Everything feels borrowed. A single gunshot scatters it all. The markets are no longer just about food. They are about survival. A bag of rice traded for medicine, a generator part swapped for bullets, cigarettes exchanged for information. Money loses its meaning. Trust becomes the real currency, and trust is the rarest thing of all. And through it all, you are exhausted. Not just in your body, but in your soul. Sleep is shallow. Food is scarce. Every step outside feels like gambling with death. Every hour inside feels like waiting for death to knock. You wonder if there is anywhere left in the world where children laugh without fear, where nights are dark but safe, where silence is not broken by war. But here, in Iraq in 2003, that world feels as far away as the moon. And as you sit in the dark, clutching your family, listening to the city tear itself apart, you realize this is not just survival. This is something worse. Because here, there are no heroes, no victories, only ordinary people trapped between powers too large to fight, too cruel to care. And you would not have survived it. Fallujah. The name becomes a wound on every tongue. For the world, it is a battlefield. For the people inside, it is a trap. A city sealed by checkpoints, surrounded by tanks, pounded day and night. You hear the shelling first, the deep thunder of artillery rolling across the desert, shaking the ground under your feet. Windows rattle, walls crack, roofs collapse. There is no safe room, no safe corner. The bombs do not choose between fighters and families. They fall where they fall, and you pray you are not beneath them. Families retreat to basements, but even there dust rains down from ceilings, choking lungs. The air grows thick, heavy, unbreathable. Children cry in the dark, their voices hoarse from thirst. Mothers pressed rags over tiny mouths, whispering lullabies no one believes. Fathers sit in silence, helpless, their eyes hollow. Food vanishes, water disappears. Streets are empty, not because people have left, but because leaving means death. Anyone who steps outside risks being shot. Corpses lie uncollected in alleys, covered with sheets or nothing at all, waiting for a moment of silence that never comes. The smell seeps through the air, mixing with smoke and dust, clinging to your clothes, your hair, your skin. Inside houses, families count grains of rice, sip from bottles they know will not last. Neighbors knock quietly, asking if you have bread, sugar, anything. You want to help, but you have nothing to give. Hunger is no longer an ache in the stomach. It is a fog that clouds the mind, makes children too weak to cry, makes adults too tired to hope. Electricity is gone. Generators roar in a few houses, but fuel is priceless. The rest sit in darkness, listening to the steady rhythm of shelling. Sometimes it pauses for an hour, maybe two. In those rare moments, the silence is almost worse because you know it is only waiting to return. And then come the raids. Soldiers sweeping house to house, boots echoing through stairwells, shouts in foreign tongues, doors shattered, men pulled outside, women crying, children hiding under blankets. Some are released, some are taken, some are never seen again. The city becomes a maze of fear. Fighters move through tunnels and broken walls. Families crawl through backyards, trying to escape one street to another. The line between civilian and soldier blurs until no one knows who is who. And because no one knows, everyone is a target. Hospitals cannot cope. Rooms are packed wall to wall with the wounded. Blood pools on the floors. Surgeons operate without anesthesia, their hands trembling from exhaustion. Outside, ambulances cannot reach the injured. Snipers fire at anything that moves. A father carries his son in his arms, running through gunfire, praying with every step. Sometimes he makes it, sometimes he does not. Fallujah becomes a graveyard, whole blocks flattened, mosques turned into ruins, schools turned into shelters, then into tombs. The sound of prayers mixes with explosions. The cries of the living mix with the silence of the dead. And yet, life clings stubbornly. Women boil weeds into soup. Children kick cans in rubble-strewn alleys. Men whisper stories of survival, promising each other that someday the city will rise again. Hope flickers, fragile, trembling, but it refuses to die. Still, every day is a gamble. Every night is terror. You cannot call for help. You cannot leave. The world outside watches on screens, but no one comes. And this is the cruelest truth. You are not part of a war between armies. You are part of a war against time. How many days can you last without water? How many nights without sleep? How many raids before it is your door they break? Fallujah in 2003 is not a story of victory or defeat. It is a story of survival, crushed beneath rubble. A story of families erased in silence. And you would not have survived here. The bombs fall less often now. The tanks roll away. The headlines shift to other places. But for you, the war does not end. Because wars never end when the guns fall silent. They end in the minds, the bodies, the memories of those who survive. In Baghdad, in Basra, in Fallujah, people step out of their homes, or what is left of them. Streets that once bustled with life are scarred with craters, rubble, burned-out cars. Buildings lean like broken teeth. Markets reopen, but they are thin, frail, uncertain. Children wander between stalls, barefoot, hungry, their eyes older than their years. The sound of war lingers, not in explosions, but in echoes. Doors slam and children flinch. A car backfires and grown men drop to the ground. Even silence is heavy, because silence is what came before every bomb. You try to rebuild, but how do you rebuild when the very foundations are cracked? Families are scattered, some fled abroad, some buried under rubble, some missing without a trace. Friends you once laughed with are now names whispered in prayer. Hospitals are still overflowing, not with the wounded of battle, but with the sick, the malnourished, the traumatized. Doctors speak of a new war against disease, against poverty, against despair. Children cough in crowded rooms, mothers sit in corners, their faces hollow, their arms cradling babies too weak to cry. Schools reopen, but classrooms echo with emptiness. Teachers are gone, textbooks burned. Children stare at chalkboards, trying to learn, but their minds drift to the sound of sirens, to the memory of nights spent in basements. An entire generation grows up knowing fear before knowledge, hunger before hope. And in the silence of the nights, trauma lives on. You dream of raids, of boots on stairs, of walls shaking. You wake in the dark, your heart pounding, your breath shallow, convinced for a moment that the war is still here. In some ways, it always is. The economy crumbles, jobs vanish, families sell furniture, jewelry, anything to buy food. People line up for aid, rice, flour, cooking oil, but there is never enough. Pride withers, dignity bends. Survival becomes the only goal, even when the official war is over. And with the collapse of order comes something worse: mistrust. You no longer know who is friend, who is foe, who is simply desperate. Neighbors avoid each other's eyes. Conversations are cautious, clipped. Every word is measured, because betrayal has become part of survival too. But the deepest wound is not in the streets, not in the rubble, not in the empty shelves. It is in the spirit. Because when a city lives under constant fear, it learns to survive, but it forgets how to live. You sit with your family one evening in the dim light of a generator bulb. The air is heavy, the night quiet. You eat bread and tea, the simplest of meals. You try to smile at your children. They smile back, but their eyes are different. They have seen too much. They have lost too much. And you realize their childhood is gone, stolen by war. And you ask yourself, how do you survive that? The politicians speak of rebuilding. The world speaks of democracy. But in your home, survival is still the same: food, water, safety. Dreams of normal life feel like fiction. The future feels fragile, like glass that could shatter at any sound. And so, years later, you still carry the war inside you. Every noise, every shadow, every silence, it does not leave. It becomes part of you. This is the truth that few outside ever see. The war may fade from the news, but for those who lived it, it never fades. It follows them in every step, every breath, every memory. And you, watching this now, imagining yourself there, you would not have endured it. Not the bombs, not the hunger, not the fear that never ended, not the silence that came after. Because survival in Iraq in 2003 was not just about living through war. It was about living with its shadow forever. And the truth is, you would not survive.